Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So we are doing this again, and by this again I mean another GM L87 engine video due to the recall. Now here's the thing, when I made my original video, it was about, maybe 15 hours after the initial drop. It was literally the next day after they issued the recall. And I knew there wasn't a lot of great information. It was pretty basic at that. And I knew there was going to be some more information dropping. And that's what we have here today. So I guess I'm making a update video on that originally. Now, initially, it sounded like GM was actually going to, take the hit and say, we're going to replace these engines. There was a inspection phase of it and all this stuff. But let's just say it's, I don't know, kind of trying but not trying at best, let's call it. So either way, we're going to get into this a little bit. So initially GM said, hey, we are going to recall these engines. And in my initial video, I thought, hey, kudos to GM. They're owning up to their failures and they're going to take care of people. And even though as much as I wanted to believe that, I really was a little skeptical. That's why I waited a couple weeks, and I think it's about 2 weeks later, and we have revisions and we have new updates to this. And some of it is good and some of it is bad. But let's start off with pretty much the basics. Not everyone that is under this recall is going to be getting an engine per se, or at least not right away. It may get to a point where they might eventually get all engines, but doesn't look like it right off the bat. Because the biggest thing that GM did is when they issued this recall, the vehicle had to go in for an inspection, and if your truck wasn't experiencing a check engine light with a certain code, I believe it was like a timing code, P0016 if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that. That you were basically to get a new oil cap that had a new oil recommendation, which was 040 weight, and you would get a oil change with the new oil weight 040. So basically they're kind of using thicker oil here, and that's their remedy as of now. So that doesn't really shock me that they're using thicker oil, because I mean, for the longest of times now, I've kind of been against the 020, 016. I think there's 08 out there now. To try to gain all of these emission standards and qualify on certain MPG scales, all these manufacturers are basically using thinner oil to help, I guess you can say, kind of cheat the system, because less drag on the engine, because thinner oils, less energy, a little bit better fuel economy, things of that nature. But, they're playing a very dangerous game, especially when you're getting into, the 016, 08s and all that stuff. I mean, that's literally tap water at that point. I mean, it's really thin. I don't see it, giving much protection to your engine, unlike a 5W30 or a 30 weight oil per se, which is what I always like. 30 weights are awesome, engine oils. But either way, couple things that have happened here. So aside from them letting people down, saying that, hey, if you're not experiencing check engine light or a particular issue, you're not going to get an engine, we are just going to replace your oil cap and give you an oil change, and you will actually, this is a good thing, I guess you can say, from GM, they will be extending those engines warranties that don't get an engine, basically. So if you just get the oil change and the oil cap, they will extend your factory warranty on that engine to cover X amount of more time. At this point, I don't want to mention any details as far as what the time is, because it could change in the future, and I don't want to, have to go in and have to make another video, although pretty sure we might be making another update video to this eventually here in the future. So that is what the recall basically entails. Now, in my honest opinion, even though they have certain windows, and I kind of read through this report here that they have, it uses very tricky words, like kind of like we think this is the window and stuff like that, but they're kind of not closing it or opening it up too much, just kind of, playing that legal jumbo. Basically, they're saying that from 21 to about 2024 are the affected engines, and 25 model year lineups are good. Now, in my opinion, and solely my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I think that what they're trying to do is not issue a stop sale on the new trucks, because that's definitely going to hurt them. And in that sense, they're not including the 25. But the way the language is written up in the recall, they're technically saying that, hey, as of right now, we don't see an issue, but if there is an issue, we can always add it on later. And I think what they're doing is they're just trying to sell them and there may be an issue, and then just be like, oh, well, you know, we got it open as a recall, so we'll just jumble these in there too and throw them in with the rest of the years, which, I mean, yet to be determined. So again, solely my opinion, I think, and you know, not a fact at this point, just kind of giving you guys a little bit insight of what's going on in my head when I think about this. So one thing that initially I thought of when I made the original video is that GM supposedly made this recall effort on their own, and that is simply not true. Apparently it looks like NHTSA forced their hand on this. Now here is the kicker. On the very first video that I made about these engines failing about a month ago, so I guess this is the third video on this per se, but on the very first video, I had a lot of people commenting saying, oh, out of, you know, 800, 900,000 trucks, you know, there's only 29, 30 complaints. Here's the thing, that number hasn't really gone up too much in the NHTSA probe. But the thing is, internally, GM documents reveals that they have had a bunch of these trucks failing. Now, as far as the number, I want to say it's somewhere like, you know, 30 or 20,000 or something like that in the GM internal documents, from what I believe I read, if I got that right. So basically, GM has internal records when cars come in for warranty purposes, and they keep really tight records of what happened, what failed, how it failed, and slowly over, you know, thousands of units, you start getting a little picture here where, hey, we're getting a lot of failures on the, let's say, crankshafts, which is what's happening on this particular engine. And they compile that data and it starts showing a relevant graph like, hey, you know, we might have a potential issue here. So those internal numbers were a lot higher than the few complaints that the NHTSA got. And I guess when GM opened the books to NHTSA and they saw that, pretty much the gig was over, and they were forced, they had to, because they had a massive, you know, I guess a compilation of issues where the trending graph was like, hey, engine issue recall. So that's what kind of prompted this. And for those of you that were getting on me last time saying, oh, it's only like 30 or 40 complaints, well, that's just what the NHTSA was able to get. The internal documents for GM show that was a lot higher than that, thousands actually, in the high thousands. So yeah, that's pretty extreme. So now that we got that out of the way, some other interesting news that I found out is that GM has been knowing about this since 2021, April of 21, and all the way up to February of 2025, which is earlier this year, there have been apparently, from what they say, 12 accidents that involved these vehicles, and one of them actually resulted in an engine fire. Now, there's no you know, information as far as those, but there were 12 that I guess were cataloged as accidents due to this nature of the engine failing. I see a lot of lawsuits coming from that, or a few lawsuits depending on what's going on with those, because they knew this. I mean, one of them caught fire from what it looks like, from what I read on the report. So that's extreme. These things are not only failing, but also potentially catching fire on the roadways. And GM knew that, like I said, 12 reported incidents that were cataloged from April of 21 to February of 25. So they knew what was going on here, but apparently didn't want to make a big deal about it because it would issue a recall and a microscope on them. So, you know, it looks like they were covering up tracks or trying to cover it up as long as they could before it was made public. And the NHTSA, again, once they got involved, they had a few complaints. GM showed them their records, and then basically it was up. They had to issue recalls. So I found that pretty interesting. Now, a second thing that I found really interesting is the fact that if you do not get a new engine replaced, but you just get the oil change like we talked about, they are going to be extending the warranty for, you know, X amount. And again, I'm not going to be mentioning numbers because it could change. But if, let's say, you have 50,000 miles and your truck qualified for an engine replacement, they are not extending the warranty of those engines. So if you replace your engine at 50,000 miles and your warranty is set to expire in 10,000 miles at 60,000, well, that's all you have as far as warranty on that new replacement engine. Now, here's the thing. We don't know yet if they're making revisions to these engine blocks, or maybe it's just a supplier issue, because the whole thing that I've read in these reports is that GM is basically pointing the finger at their suppliers. They're saying their sediment in the, you know, crank area. They're saying that the crank areas are not machined correctly, and that's what's causing the issue. So it's kind of similar to what Toyota experienced, except for, Toyota, it wasn't as many trucks. I mean, they were able to just, get new engines for those trucks as far as Toyota was. But with GM, it's going to be a little bit different. They're a big company. They sold a lot of these things. They can't just, replace every single engine even though they wanted to, because that's a big thing to take on, and it can take a long time to do so, especially with trying to keep up with new production and replacement engine production. I can see that being a problem, especially because right now manufacturing is kind of hit or miss, to say the least. But at the end of the day, this solely falls on GM. I mean, GM makes the engines, or finds suppliers to make the engines. So I don't like pointing the finger at suppliers. Get it? Mistakes happen, but at the end of the day, GM shouldn't just say, hey, it was a supplier. No, GM, you chose them, so you pretty much go down with them. You have to, I guess you can say, own up to it and just, take responsibility instead of just trying to point the finger at, him or her or whatever. Just, it's idiotic. Like, we're not kids here. So either way, take responsibility for it. But like I said, the extended warranty thing is a little bit of a iffy now, because I mean, it's kind of crappy how you could replace your engine and, get 10,000 miles, whatever's left on your coverage, and them not have it extended. I wonder if these engine blocks maybe aren't really being changed. Maybe they're just swapping them for engines of the same nature that don't have any, I guess you can say, updates on them. And you never know. You might go, 20,000 miles and, it happens again, and guess what? You're out of warranty. So they might be pushing this to the curb a little bit. Maybe, possibly, again, solely just an opinion. Not exactly sure if that is what they're doing, just from what it looks like to me. So, that's kind of a odd thing to say the least. But this recall, all in all, with GM, I mean, it's just from the way I see it, just a constant push. Like, they're want to do the very least that they can. It started off as just the dealership owned cars, or the manufacturer owned cars would get servicing first, and then I guess they started taking in, retail customer cars and doing these checks. And right now it's just kind of hit or miss. It's all over the place. There's a lot of people on YouTube reporting on this, and you're hearing a lot of different things from a lot of different places, but I'm solely going based off the GM paperwork here. Now I do have my little sheet here of some little notes that I made, but for everyone that wants to see it, that is the official report. And this one is actually revision 1. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up there. But yeah, I mean, this is just gonna continue to grow, and a lot of changes are probably gonna happen. We don't know as of right now, but as the weeks continue to go, more will come out of this, or more light will be shed on the situation. So right now it's anything, and I expect there to be a lot of revisions to this. So as of right now, I just want to make this update video, kind of get everyone clued in on what's going on. For me, I think GM is really letting people down. Like, I thought when I read this report, like, oh wow, they're extending the warranty on the engines, and then I found out it was only on engines that didn't get a new engine, or vehicles that didn't get a new engine per se. And then the ones that did get it don't get nothing, just factory warranty, which I think they need to extend the warranties on all these trucks for a very long time. I believe Toyota did that, where they extended their warranties, even though they replaced the engines, just for peace of mind and security on the vehicle owners' behalfs, or people looking to buy them. So we'll see what happens with this. And right now, let's say GM is feeling it, and it sucks, because I like GM. I mean, I've said this before. I grew up with GM. I am a GM guy, but seeing them, go the way they're going right now, it's horrible, and it absolutely sucks. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. So just want to make this little update video for everyone out there. So like always, if you enjoyed it, comment, like, and subscribe, because it definitely helps the channel grow. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the next video.